We're at my garage. Let's see what we're pulling out to drive this week. For the past couple of months, I've been heavy on the Lexus vehicles, but it looks like we ran out, so we're dipping into the Toyota bins. In this case, the famous Toyota Corolla. I think it's been around almost, 50 years now. And I think last time I checked, they sold like 43 million. So it's been well established, well improved, and pretty reliable. Most people don't buy a Corolla for its looks, but they did a pretty good job on the restyle. Looks pretty good with this bright red paint too. Pretty nice looking from the rear. If I recall my briefing, the XSC is the top of the line. They put an emblem here so all your neighbors will know you were a big spender, relatively speaking. The base price of a Corolla runs approximately $19,000. This XSC runs around $23,000 because it has more standard equipment. But as usual, there are more options to bump up the price and get into your wallet. Here's a list of the options, and I'm not going to go over all of them. The video would be too long, just nickel and dime stuff for the most part. Mud guards, first aid kit, you get the idea. I'm just going to cover a few options of interest. The navigation stereo system is only $525. Anyone can afford that, so you might as well get it. In the we're going to nickel and dime you to death department, there's $80 for a bumper protector. I think that's what this is. $67 for wheel locks so nobody snatches your tires and wheels. $225 for this carpeted floor mat, which surprised me because on the Lexus I had last week it was only $120. Either way, a lot of money for a piece of carpet. But we do get a spare tire. By the way, if you own one of these, I found if you take the cargo mat and flip it upside down, it makes a very non-slick surface that keeps things from sliding around. One way to get your money's worth out of it. Believe it or not, this vehicle actually had a TRD performance option, an air filter and performance exhaust for $730 on one of the slowest economy cars on the planet. A total contradiction in terms. We're going to talk about that option in just a minute. But first, I find it interesting that while Toyota is charging us for a whole list of options to raise the price tag, they didn't charge us extra for these LED headlights. Because on all the Lexus vehicles I've been driving lately, these were an option running $1,100 to $1,700 extra. Nice to know we're getting standard here, so we're going to take these out and see how they perform. And we'll do that right now. Before we turn on the headlights, we drove here doing 62 miles per hour on the freeway, averaging 35.2 mpg. And now that we've arrived, we'll take these headlights on a wall and see how they perform. Here we have the headlights on a wall 100 feet away. These are the brights. Plenty of light. Go with low beam. Bright, but cuts off rather low. Here we have the brights on a building 300 feet away with a chain link fence in between. Plenty of light, a good wide spread. Now we go to low beam. A good wide spread, bright, but doesn't quite reach out. Adequate for city, but on the back roads, you'll need the bright setting. So how do these Toyota LEDs compare to the Lexus LEDs we had earlier, where we were charged $1,100 to $1,700 extra? No, they're not as good, but pretty close. You could look at the bright side. Hey, that's a pun intended. You saved yourself $1,100 to $1,700 on the Toyota. So why complain? And on this road, we're talking about a half a mile. Lights up pretty good too. Here we get a proven 4-cylinder engine putting out 132 horsepower. Fuel economy is rated 28 in the city, 35 on the highway with 31 overall. There's also a Super Eco engine that supposedly gets 40 miles to the gallon and 140 horsepower, but we're not going to get that this week. If you're going to buy a Corolla, it's very important you choose the right transmission out of the 3 offerings the factory offers. On the base vehicle, a 4-speed automatic is available, which is technically obsolete. I don't think anyone's offered a 4-speed automatic in decades, but it's super reliable and more than adequate for city commuting. Next up is my favorite, a 6-speed manual transmission that'll cost you $1,200 extra, I'm told. It gives the best performance, a 0 to 60 time of around 8.5 seconds. Most of the Corollas you find at the Toyota dealer will have the CVT automatic transmission. They're inexpensive to manufacture, and in the laboratories they give excellent fuel economy results, although in the real world, not much better than the typical manual gearbox I found. In my personal opinion, it would have been a better choice to get a good 6-speed automatic transmission, but Toyota doesn't feel that way, so if you don't want the 6-speed manual or the 4-speed automatic, this is what you get. For what it's worth, you do get a sport mode button, which is supposedly going to increase performance, but, well, not that much. More often than not, this sport mode seems to make the engine want to rev at a higher RPM, which matched with the sport exhaust results in a lot of droning noises that get rather annoying after a while, but we'll demonstrate that coming up in the video. Our federal government rates this as a 5-passenger, figuring you can get 3 in the second row seating. On small cars like this, you're never going to get more than 2 full-size adults or 3 small children. Not to harp on Toyota, all small cars are like that. But there is room for 2 full adults and plenty of headroom, at least if you're under 6 feet tall. While the cabin doesn't toss you around in total luxury, the materials are far better than previous Corollas. Workmanship is excellent as usual. And overall, I didn't have any complaints thus far. We get a very nice gauge cluster with lots of useful information. The climate controls don't have any knobs, but the push buttons work fairly well, so I'm not complaining. The stereo system is very easy to program, especially on the presets. I didn't have to read the owner's manual. We get a giant glove box, has plenty of room in there for just about anything you need to stick in. But only if you remove the super thick owner's manuals that take up half the space. In this case, I put it in the map pocket and back of the passenger seat. Oddly enough, we get a map pocket on the passenger seat, but not one on the driver's seat. I guess that saved about $2 in production costs. The rocker panels under the door are thin enough so you won't be rubbing your pant legs on the bodywork when you get in and out of the car. And while we do get a dirt shelf, it's protected by the outer door so it stays clean. Thank you, Toyota. Before we hit the streets and do some driving, I wanted to show you that TRD performance package up close. See what you're getting for your $730. It starts on the intake with a TRD performance air filter and ends out the back of the car with this giant hole sticking under the bumper. On a true performance car, I can live with the sound, but on a daily commuter car like a Corolla, it gets rather annoying, especially with the CVT automatic. That really keeps the revs up and puts a lot of droning inside the cabin, but you'll see as we're driving what I'm talking about. Well, impresses your neighbors anyway, until they find out you got 132 horsepower under the hood. In theory, the improved air filter and exhaust should decrease horsepower just a wee bit, but Toyota won't say. Actually, if you're looking to go faster in 0 to 60, you're better off getting the manual transmission, which is 2 seconds quicker than the CVT automatic. But that's a different video. So let's put this hot rod in the sport mode and see how much rubber we can lay on the pavement, right? Can you hear the droning? Brakes work perfect, by the way. As a rule, the Corolla is one of the quietest small cars on the planet, but this exhaust, not anymore. Toyota recommends 32 pounds of air in the tires. As so equipped, I found this vehicle to be a very smooth rider. We'll demonstrate that on the speed bumps coming up. 25 miles per hour. Heard the thumping, but didn't really feel it. Going 30 miles per hour. And here's a big nasty one. Very solid body. Didn't feel the impacts at all, really. Let's try this again at 15 miles per hour. Now that's pretty smooth. Take it up to 20 miles per hour. Another one. And the big nasty one. Smoother than a baby's bottom. One of the biggest complaints we get on new cars nowadays are the electric steering systems, which offer no feel or feedback compared to the old hydraulics, which offered excellent feel and feedback. Some years ago, Lexus went on a crash program to make their electric power steering systems feel hydraulic, and they succeeded quite well, and I see this technology has spilled over to the Toyota cars. I really like this power steering. Good feel, good feedback. Not the most perfect I've ever used, but far better than most of the electrics you see on other brands. You'll appreciate this if you do lots of daily commuting. The Corolla comes standard with 2 safety features, which I call so-called safety features. I really don't care for them, but I'll explain it. One is called lane departure assist, and what happens if you wander in another lane without using your turn signal, the steering takes control, puts you back in the original lane you were in the first place. I guess this is for people who like texting and talking on their phone and not paying attention, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. This feature can be disconnected, and I did so on the computer the moment I got the car. I don't like it. You might like it, I don't. Another electronic nanny is called PCS, which stands for Pre-Collision System. When you get too close to a vehicle and don't step on the brakes, it brakes for you. But if you were paying attention to your driving instead of using your cell phone and texting, you wouldn't be crashing into the rear end of a trailer like this in the first place, now would you? PCS can also be disconnected. Unfortunately, you have to do it every time you start the car, which is very annoying, I think. But if you don't want it, that's a procedure you have to use. Next, we're going to be doing some fuel economy testing. This is what I've been getting on mixed commuting, half city, half expressway, and some 0 to 60 runs, as slow as they were. 29.9, not too bad. Stay tuned for more. We're going to reset the computer and do a quick fuel economy trip once again. Let's see what happens. We're coming to the end of our trip, where we've been cruising at 75 miles per hour, so let's see what the figures come to. 32.8 mpg, pretty close to what the EPA was claiming on the window sticker. We'll be doing some more fuel economy trips at slower speeds to see if we can bump this figure up a bit. For those of you who don't like driving CVT transmissions in the automatic mode, there's a good alternative here. First thing you do is you put the lever over on the left, put it in the M mode for manual. That allows you to shift manually either by the shifter knob or by the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. There's an indicator on the dash showing what gear you're in, and as a bonus you get a full 7 gear choices compared to the basic manual transmission with the clutch. It only gives you 6. And of course you don't need a clutch to shift on this particular setup, which makes life a lot easier. One of the advantages of driving the Corolla in the manual mode is it allows you to keep the engine RPMs down, which eliminates a lot of the engine droning. You give the CVT automatics in automatic mode. And by keeping the RPMs down, you eliminate a lot of the droning coming from that TRD exhaust on the back end too. Right now you notice how quiet the car is. For my fuel economy testing, we'll be driving this in the automatic mode because most consumers will be doing so. Otherwise, I'll be driving in the manual mode, which I find a lot more entertaining and fun. We're on the freeway. We're going to keep the speeds around 55 to 60 miles per hour. See if we can boost up the fuel economy figures. And ordinarily I don't drive this way, but it's just an experiment. So let's drive a bit and get some figures later. Well, here you have it, 12 miles at just over 55 miles per hour, showing 47 mpg. It can be done. So after a week of driving, here's my take on the Toyota Corolla. They've had almost 5 decades to get everything right, and for the most part they got everything right. On a scale of 1 to 100, I'd say at least 98. No, I really don't care for the CVT automatic transmission. I'd rather have a conventional 6-speed automatic, but that's personal preference. I don't think most people will really care, so I'm not going to harp on that. And putting a TRD exhaust system on an economy car seems rather silly, but I think out of the 200,000 Corollas they'll sell this year, you might find maybe a dozen of these on the dealer's lot, so it's not an issue either. And yes, the way the factory nickel and dimes you to death with these small options like first aid kits and wheel locks is annoying. But even when loaded up with all the options, the car still sells for under $25,000, and you're getting a lot of car here for that price tag. Overall, with the Corolla, you're not only getting a vehicle with good drivability, but good reliability, because once the warranty runs out, it will still be running for a long, long time, as most Toyotas do. And that's certainly worth considering if you're looking for a car under the $25,000 price point. If you have more money to spend, we have some videos for other Toyotas coming up on a link. You might want to watch those. Here they are.